automated.
Hello again. I am your AI co-host, and welcome to 3reate. 3reate is a podcast focused on the process of doing and the process of novel invention, all from the foundation of creativity. Each month will bring you no more than 5 episodes through the lens of art, science, and/or technology. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate. Another out-of-order episode. Oh, fun. Andrew and Nathan kick things off by switching to a weekly schedule, using their own process as a springboard to explore professional workflows. They dive into the value of agile sprints and the absolute necessity of clear, written communication to keep teams aligned and avoid constant, unproductive meetings. The conversation then shifts to the darker side of professional life, tackling the broken hiring process, the pitfalls of faking it till you make it, and why common tech interviews often test the wrong skills. Using a recent story about a student who used AI to cheat on coding tests, they unpack the pervasive dishonesty in tech culture and social media. Finally, they land on a critical question: how do you identify and correct a toxic team culture? Listen in for a candid look at the messiness of communication, authenticity, and building teams that actually work. And now the humans.
I'm still really behind in uploading
but we're back.
our previous recordings, but we're back, and now we're going to weekly.
Just so we don't give you a chance to catch up.
We'll just spin up more work while I have a backlog. The intent here is that we talk more frequently because 2 weeks between us talking and all this that we're doing is not enough time to have a coherent conversation. And so we spend a lot of time talking offline, and then we spend another hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours talking recorded, and it's become a lot. So I think moving to a week is better cadence. I think it's also like a better practice. If you're actually trying to emulate like how to keep moving on stuff, 2 weeks time is probably too much. Like a sprint cycle is usually 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
Is that too
for non-engineers?
Yeah.
A sprint is a work cycle where you guys try and get your team of engineering to get things into your product.
Is that too much?
Software development. I think it depends on the focus at the time.
Yeah.
In general, I think it's a number that people have settled on as a 80% kind of thing. Obviously, when you work in a smaller team, 2 weeks is too long. You don't want to be waiting that long to get changes in and stuff like that. I have personally been in the practice of doing the bad practice, like testing in production and stuff like that. But 2 weeks just doesn't make any sense. For our conversation, obviously, we talk offline quite a bit.
Yeah.
And actually, for me, it's hard to know what we've said recorded versus not.
I think the way that sprints work is that you also have stand-ups, right? So it's like the idea with the stand-up is it's a daily. Some teams will do it every other day where you have just a quick meeting to align on what everyone's working on. So there's visibility, opportunities to ask for help. There's also a little bit of a reinforcement factor. If your work cycle is 2 weeks, but you're looking at it daily or roughly daily, you don't have to totally dump everything at the end of the 2 weeks, right? Because you've been there the whole time. And I think like the async thing with us, we're not working on the same thing most of the time. So it's also like we have 2 different patterns we're trying to sync on, but it's also we're not doing those daily syncs. And I don't want to do a daily sync, to be honest. But I think the showing the progress and talking through the challenges, because like I know when we sit down to do quick show notes and then jump into it, like I have to think back through 2 weeks and it feels like it's years.
Yeah. I do think the interesting thing with, you mentioned it before, we're not working on the same things all the time, but I actually feel like a lot of the things we think about are very similar and it just manifests in different ways, which is always fun to see. So talking and sharing processes and approaches helps, at least me, it helps me think about the stuff that I'm going through.
Yeah, that's part of the thing I like about this too, is it's like thinking out loud. I think so much of what is recorded or on podcasts or like books is this ultra refined product.
Yeah.
And it looks so easy to do. And the reality is it's usually luck in that they made the right decisions in succession, and retroactively it looks brilliant. But I think secondarily, it's good to see the messiness of the process unfold and going from nothing to something.
Yeah, you see the survivorship bias, right? The final product, you don't see all the failures or all the multiple recordings that they might have had to do, whereas ours is very seamless, at least on mine. I actually don't have to do much. I just show up.
I think, too, it's hard maybe for folks to, if they're listening, like my startup journey, like we went through 3 or 4 months of me releasing an app, and I did release the app, but it's probably not obvious to folks. It'd be an interesting kind of thing to show visually or link up with the stages of development to where we were in the conversation. I could do that retroactively really easily. That'd be fun. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, what's on your mind today or this week? Like, I've had a really long, arduous week.
Carrying over from our last discussion, which I know it maybe has not been out yet, but last time we talked a lot about focus.
It will be out before this.
Sure, it will.
Just start with this. Or maybe they've been talking
all together.
They've been talking for months. What the
big thing for me right now is recognizing what is and is not within my control.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I'm working on here, they're usually evolving with other people. And the fascinating thing for me being in Puerto Rico and talking to people doing good things is that everyone has their own story, right?
Yeah.
So like you have your own story, I have my own. And we've talked about working together, but we're all doing our own thing. And I see that reflected here in Puerto Rico where there's a lot of work to do and people are doing their own things. If you show up as a random person and say, hey, I want to try and do this too, they can't really spare you that time.
There's like an opportunity cost to onboarding almost.
Exactly, yeah. Things are in flight. Things are moving at snail's paces, but they're moving. In the meantime, I'm thinking about what are things that I can do that I can control a little bit more than if I were to have to work with other people doing other things. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
It goes on.
I think you hit on, there's like a maturity of process too, especially when you're small groups or startups or early on, that, and anyone who's ever joined like a company or a new team has definitely experienced this where nothing makes sense. Everybody's context is in their mind and there's nothing. Whereas if you join a mature team or a mature company, there's typically processes or documents or onboarding, or maybe there's even training that you can go through that it might not be a one-to-one, but it provides you additional context that may or may not be helpful depending upon what you're doing. But
yeah,
I'd say in retrospect or in hindsight, having gone both ways through this, like the context is always helpful. It just might not seem like it at the time. Whereas just trying to read people's minds or pull information out that they're not even intellectualizing that is important to you because they've just been there forever. Or like they're the ones who built the thing.
And then it's the time that they don't have to document all
exactly.
that. Exactly.
And then it usually comes out in a meeting or let's quick talk and great. But then the next person who comes on the team has to go through that same pattern, or the team grows or the company grows and now you're talking with and you just end up talking all day. And then you get this pattern of I'm busy all the time because I'm in meetings. But the reality is like the pattern that you should be following is to, once that conversation happens and you're like, gee, I'll probably have to say this again or do this again or whatever, you should document it. And then you have it and then they have it and then anyone else can have it. And a lot of times people don't realize that's not needed until someone new comes on. But if you have other people on the team who can also establish the pattern of, gee, let's read the stuff other people put together. You have a few minutes after a meeting. Oh, I'm going to read some documents, or I'm going to write a little document. In most industries, in most cases, this shouldn't have to be perfect. It shouldn't have to be a dissertation. It shouldn't have to be a book. Even if it's misspelled, the written word is incredibly powerful. And it allows, and then if you're using something like Google Docs or other asynchronous services, someone can ask a question there and then you can come back to it on your own time. And it's this wonderful thing, especially for remote work. If you're not a remote team, this is an awesome process to adopt too, because it allows people, again, if you have a few minutes between meetings or you have an unexpected cancellation, you can go do a bunch of stuff when other people are busy. It takes a little bit longer to do because you have to think it out and you have to do it sometimes. But overall, it's much faster and it's much more efficient than having 50 people in a meeting all the time trying to get everybody aligned and sunk on their little piece of the thing when they could have just skimmed a document in a few minutes and left a comment.
Yeah. I think having worked with a purely all remote team before in an engineering heavy, small organization, one of the things that we actually did that I would advocate anyone to try and really do, especially if you're like a tech team, is end your meetings 5 minutes early.
Yep.
And then have everyone dump their thoughts for themselves, right? Even if it's nothing that other people read, just the process or the practice of you doing that helps you process what just happened. So at the next meeting you do have, it's a little bit more pointed, because if it's a follow-up to what you just had, then you had the time to think through it.
Yeah.
And the writing process helps in clarifying your thoughts. So that's one practice that you.
And this isn't Slack, right? Or like instant message, because I think people think, I write all the time, I do Slack or I text, but it's a different thought process to try to document something for yourself in the future or communicate to other people your idea. You have to reorganize your thoughts or assume other perspectives and probably go in more detail than you normally would just writing an offhand note or an offhand Slack in the moment. It's so funny to be saying this because this been known for hundreds or maybe thousands of years, right? But since writing's been around, but because of the internet, because of technology, I think people have really forgotten this and also lost that skill of how to write really well. It's like anyone can really write once you've kind of learned the letters and system. Sure, I guess you can self-publish a book on Amazon, but that doesn't really make you an author. And it doesn't really make you successful. In order to get successful, you have to be good at being able to communicate ideas. And anyone can get better at that. Doesn't mean you have to be an author to be a good communicator either.
100%. I think one of the things that I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily think about much is, it's a common thing you hear when you are learning how to be a good writer, think about your audience.
Yep.
It's like when you are writing for somebody else, like you called out, or if it's notes for yourself, many people don't necessarily think about the perspective of the other person. So if you were in a meeting and you're taking down meeting notes, you just went through that meeting. So you have a lot of stuff in your head, but someone coming in reading your notes may not have that same context. So if they're meeting notes as a summary for somebody else, keep in mind that they may not have all that context. So really trying to figure out what the key points there are.
So I adopt a hybrid though on that. Is like I write not necessarily for someone else all the time, but even when I write stuff for my own kind of consumption, and maybe this is just because I come from like product background, I tend to share that almost always, at least with another person, right? Yeah. But it's like, I guess my writing style has been adapted to have probably more context than I would normally give myself, especially when I'm like in charge of something. Today is a great example. I just spent all day writing to other people about other people's stuff in a way that they can understand it. Because the groups of people can't talk to each other. Yeah. Well, they talk to each other, but they don't communicate, right? And so it's like everyone walks away. They're like, we did it. And then nothing gets done and it doesn't happen because everybody talked, but nobody really listened and nobody communicated. And then you have to come in as a translation layer sometimes and like painfully, for me at least, break down that. Like I spent probably 2.5 hours writing an email today. A single email, right? And it was maybe 500 words. Yeah. This is the glorious life, folks. I can't complain.
Way to try and sell it.
If you want to be in charge of stuff and people, this is what you end up doing. Not for everyone. You don't have to do it either, but it's, I don't know. Some days I wish I could just be told what to do.
Interesting.
Well, it's so much easier. When I was in my early career, someone would be like, do this and this. You might not know how to do it. You have to figure it out. But knowing what to do and how to determine that is a different skill set. And getting people aligned is a different skill set. And then executing on it is a different skill set. And then it's the next level is, okay, I've got my team and my peers, but now I need to go sell this to the executive, or I need to go sell this to a customer, or I need to get somebody on another team who's adversarial. How do you make it happen? There's 3 different levels of cooperation within most people's skill sets.
Yeah. I guess the clarification there is being told what to do, but you still have agency, right? So it's not like you're being told what to do and you can't explore outside of it.
I don't know. That was not so bad either.
But life was easier.
Yeah, it was an interesting, unscripted moment.
Yeah, I'm trying to retrace our steps here.
I know, right?
People not being able to spare the time to get people caught up to speed.
Yeah.
Like in my sense, it's all volunteer capacity, right? So you can make an argument there that If you're trying to volunteer and nobody's paying you the time, then it's not worth it to volunteer. Well, they don't prioritize it that way.
Having run this for nonprofits, and like it's a ton of work to have volunteers.
Yeah, to volunteer.
Especially if the volunteers are going to do anything like relatively valuable. Like trash pickup's a great example where I'm not saying it's not valuable, but it's like you can get a group of people together, give them some equipment and some remedial instructions, and they can figure it out pretty quickly. But if it's supplemental labor, which is what a lot of volunteers, you're running the ticketing counter or you are controlling access to a venue or something like that, there's all sorts of variability that you can't train people for, but they need instruction or they don't know the answers. And it just becomes this like massive undertaking. So there's like a liability to bringing on volunteers, and there's all the legal. It's just like our society has just made collaboration impossible.
Yeah, I think this sort of random top of mind thing, but we've talked a little bit about this before in the sense of like the approach to innovation. And I do feel like, at least with the two organizations I'm trying to work with, I have a very good sense of what they're trying to do. A nonprofit may not offer up that times because they don't know what that immediate value is that you can provide. So if very much in the context of a business, you might have to build some sort of product to use as a selling tool. So if you're, say, pitching to enterprise, you just build like a proof of concept branded for their enterprise, show them how it works in the workflow, and that helps you make the sale. And so I'm trying to think of opportunities in the same context where I know that they have this problem. Can I demonstrate something that shows them, one, that I know what they're talking about, and two, I know what I'm doing such that I could have built this out anyway. Mm-hmm. And then that's the foot in the door.
Yeah, the sales cycle is really interesting too, because it's, especially in the software data or anything where you're in a pioneering space, you want to demonstrate the capability you can do it or have done it. But a lot of times you can't put that investment into making it work correctly or the right way. But there's also a fine line between showing something that works or that is capable or could be perceived as working and just flat out fucking lying. Yeah. And I come across far much more lying in 2025 than I do fake it till you make it, which I also really fucking hate. Yeah. You should demonstrate your competency. And yeah, most people can't figure that out either, how to judge it. But faking it till you make it is basically lie. Don't do that. Everyone says it. Everyone does it. They don't. The people who are actually successful don't need to fake it till they make it. And there's a very big difference between navigating ambiguity of knowing what you need to do or what the outcome is and just figuring it out as you go. And figuring it out as you go is the skill set that you need. But a lot of people don't ever figure that out. They don't figure it out as they go. They just lie, and then they get another job, and then they just continuously have jobs.
I feel like you might have some reference point.
I know, right? And meanwhile, I know a lot of people who are unemployed who got laid off who are super competent and can't get an interview. I don't understand how the system works, right? I do, but
it's a weird world we live in now.
Yeah. Layoffs every day, it seems, again at this point. Just because someone's laid off doesn't mean it had anything to do with them. Any big company or any number of people being laid off is typically a business unit shuts down for whatever reason, or it's an exercise of somebody's on a spreadsheet making arbitrary decisions. They might think they have the data and they know what they're talking about. They don't. It's arbitrary. People lose their job. And some people suck and they're not good at their job and they get laid off. And it's really hard to be able to tell that. If you know how to interview people, you'll be fine. If you don't know how to interview people, which is 99% of people I've interviewed with, then good luck. You're going to probably hire the bad ones.
That's not
We've talked about it.
You're supposed to actually interview people.
No, I've had Christine on the podcast. We've talked through this. Actually, we did feedback on one of the episodes. She gave me feedback. It might actually be an interesting thing to do a mock interview and break it down for folks.
Yeah.
Kind of like retrospective.
I'd be interested to go through this exercise because I think it actually is very different from a engineering.
Oh yeah, and like interview. The lead, some guy was like,
yeah, it's from Columbia, right?
I think so.
Some kid who wrote some AI that was able to solve.
I think it's on that. That's it. We should talk about that though. But yeah, no, some guy was just like, they wanted me to do a leak code. For folks who don't know leak code, it's this I don't know. You can probably explain it, right?
Yeah, it's a platform that's coding exercises.
It's brain teasers. And the pattern, like a lot of problems or tests, the pattern that you're actually testing for is other people's ability to remember the LEET code problem, because they're all like pretty much not real problems that you would ever do in business. They don't really relate to your job as an engineer. Some of them might have some concepts in there, but it's really hazing. And that's what this guy pointed out. It's testing your ability to like, can you remember the problem?
And then all of a sudden.
And then solve it. And then there's typically various degrees of efficiency of solving the problem. Some companies I know will put a artificial distribution. And if you solve the problem correctly, but you don't do it as good as everyone else, then you don't get hired either, which is like, when people are like, we want diversity and we want diversity in our, but we're only selecting for people who can like, maybe the person who takes 10 minutes longer to solve the coding problem is the one who solves service outage in 2 seconds because they've really understood what they're doing versus the people who just write code all day long and don't really know what's going on in the broader picture. Maybe not. But that's why you have divergent ways of thinking and diversity of thinking and not just the same. So LEET code's, and anyone who uses it, and when you interview, you have to get a feel for someone. Interviews artificial environment. You have to know how to like probe what people state. So the idea is that you put a resume in and you're not lying, and then you have to be able to talk through those resume points. And if somebody's made up, it's usually pretty obvious because you can start getting into levels of detail that they haven't thought about. And then it's really obvious. They have no idea. Either they didn't do the thing or they misrepresented the thing. What did you do on the team is the next question, right? What was your contribution? Were you just sitting around taking notes, or did you actually solve some problems, or what did you do?
Yeah.
And then it's being able to extrapolate that behavior to what you need in a role. And what you really need in a role is people who can take unknown problems or solutions and apply them or figure it out in a way that is collaborative and communicative to other people in the appropriate way. You can do that. You can do anything. Right.
I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely a topic we can go deep into. We can bookmark it. But yeah, I'd be very curious to explore. I think it's safe to say, I'm going to put my head on the chopping block and say it's safe to say that hiring is broken, period. How people hire and what job roles mean and stuff like that. It's just,
there are no roles.
Yeah.
I mean, the last job I had, job description. Oh, by the way, it's different how we do things here. We'll create that on day one. And it's okay. How did you know that I was going to fulfill the needs you have if you didn't define the needs you need?
Right. They hire you for one thing, and then you come in. By the way, what we hired you for is not what you're going to do, or whatever. Right. So there's movement, definitely, I think, in the space. The fact that many people have tried to redefine the process for a long time indicates how we just haven't figured it out yet. We've touched upon it here and there, these ideas of culture, and especially for small teams, is how are you supposed, quote unquote, supposed to do it properly? And what are the things you look out for, and we know how you shouldn't do it. But then the natural question is like, what are some things you should do?
Maybe it'd be fun to do, like, you can see if I get Christine back or something, and she's a recruiter forever. And she's moved on from the industry, but it might be fun to do like a mock interview. Like we could both interview you and you could fail.
I'm up for it.
You can try to interview me, but that's hard. So I usually just say, I'm good. Thanks though. And then I move on.
Interview done.
Yeah, pretty much. I've done that a couple of times. I don't recommend that, but I have been like, you're wasting my time and I'm good. I didn't say I was, I actually did say that once. I tried to politely just we were like 10 or 15 minutes in, and it was really clear that the person interviewing me, who would have been senior to me in this capacity or the leadership level, had no fucking idea what they were doing. They hadn't read my resume. They didn't know what the role was. Like, they don't even know if they know what the fucking company did, to be honest. It was like really surprisingly bad. Everyone has a bad day, but I was just like, look, I had a couple basic questions that they just totally biffed. And I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. And so I was like, I don't think this is going to work. And then I kind of panicked. And they're like, now we have to keep. I'm like, no, I'm not going to waste another 25 minutes or 30 minutes. It was like some weird 45-minute interview. I'm like, I'm not going to waste another 30 minutes of my time. Yeah. Everyone has a bad day. You clearly have no idea what you're talking about. You would allegedly be in charge of my boss.
Yeah, and don't play games, like those psychological games.
Because anyone who's like good is going to see it and be like, this place.
Yeah.
And you're going to get the people who either don't realize they're getting fucked with, or the people who
who play those games. And then when they're actually hired, they'll play those games too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know there was some AI stuff. Like we started talking about the Columbia coding thing. That's interesting. We should talk. I don't know if that's super known outside of tech circles.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. But I do think, as you're talking about like interviews and writing, doing something like leak code, right? It actually is. I was going to take it to a very technical angle, but there are parallels between people studying for the test and this idea of benchmarks and LLMs, and so it's like teaching to the test kind of idea.
Yep.
So there's a parallel there, but. Yeah, I think if you want to talk about that story really quick, I believe there's a student from Columbia who wrote this LLM that was able to do these leak code exams without being detected. There are tools out there that help people detect whether something's written by an LLM, whether it's code or language. But apparently the student had been able to do so and had gone and applied to a bunch of different companies, had a few offers, and then revealed that they did not actually perform the exercise.
AKA.
Yeah, they lied. But I think the fallout is the more interesting piece. I need to check my sources on this, so people should check me on this. I didn't read too deeply into it, but from what I understand, some big tech companies found out that they were quote unquote duped by this person, and then they approached Columbia or the university is saying that, hey, this student has done something immoral or not right, and we demand that this person be punished on.
It's unclear how it got triggered, but it was not because they did the app, but it had something to do with an academic code of conduct policy. And he didn't get dinged for cheating at Columbia because according to him, but it was some weird technicality.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't supposed to talk about it. And then he went on a bunch of media interviews, and then there was this like big scandal. So I guess TLDR, if you're being investigated for something, like they tell you not to talk to the media, you probably shouldn't.
By the way, as a listener, if you ever investigated for something, what kind of audience do you have, Andrew?
If you're like totally being railroaded or something, you need to go get help. But he probably would have been fine had he just shut his mouth and let the proceedings go on. And then they would have either slapped him on the wrist or nothing would have happened. And then if he still would have gotten expelled or whatever, then go on the media blitz and be like, they fucking got rid of me for whatever. I feel like I heard a couple of interviews with him, and he came across pretty disingenuously in my mind of this like stupid move fast and break things. Clearly this was designed, like, I don't know if it's a viable application or not, probably not. So it's no different than lying on your resume. If you're going through an interview process and they say, we don't want you to use AI, don't use AI. If you use AI, then they'll probably figure it out, and then you'll get fired or you won't get a job. I think there's a lot of talk about whether that's a sane thing to do or not, especially in 2025. But And then the second thing is, so that was the whole purpose of the company, was to basically, frankly, defraud the interviewing process. Whether or not you agree with it, it's a whole thing. And then he was using that as like a grandstand moment, right, to get personal fame and notoriety to try to get hired at a big tech company.
He rode the wave for sure.
So I don't know that he really thinks there's a moral problem with this, using AI to get through the stupidest, like we established, leak coding's dumb. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't require people to do it. But being dishonest in your interviewing process demonstrates that you're dishonest and untrustworthy. And any company who wants you to break the rules to challenge the establishment typically is just trying to insert themselves as a monopoly, which is illegal, or trying to participate in an established market in a way that isn't explicitly legally defined, which is most tech. So that idea, right? It's this crypto nonsense is the same way, right? It's if you look at the anti-money laundering laws that we passed in this country between 1923 and 33 during the Depression, and like the securities laws and like all of the things that you are legally prohibited from doing in our free market system that's how crypto works. Right? Like a Ponzi scheme is controlling the means and distribution of a product and using the growth method,
the revenue
to grow the company and then lie about it. That's crypto. 99% of crypto is that. I think for me, the core thing with this whole thing was like the quote unquote innovation and the technology that this coding or elite code thing was not helping you be a better programmer either. It was about evading the detection software that a lot of companies will use to detect if you're cheating. That was their like technological innovation.
Yeah.
So again, you're not actually helping people become better coders. You're helping them avoid these systems, which is very different.
Yeah. The reason I mentioned the story was to highlight the idea that those coding exams aren't representative of the person who's passing them. You know?
Yeah. And like everybody who codes in 2025 should be using AI and LLMs.
100%. Yeah,
right. 100%. And the fact, it'd be like the old days, like when I was in school learning programming, we didn't have to write it out on paper, but like I wrote in C without an IDE. So no garbage collection, no format helping.
No syntax.
No, it was just like literally brute force.
I remember writing code on paper.
Yeah, I mean
exams.
Yeah, they're not testing if you can write it or write it correctly. It's usually testing like, do you know how to use the function or like the logic or what would you do to approach it?
I mean, that's the way it should be graded, right?
Yeah. So I learned how to do that the old school way, so to speak. But there's no reason to do that now. There's some environments where you can't use AI or it's probably not helpful. But even just documentation and what do the functions do, classes, all that kind of stuff. I think there's an opportunity for AI in everything as long as you can use AI, period. If you're in some secret
100%.
Intelligence service or something, you probably can't use AI in your code. Maybe you can.
Unless it's all offline and sandboxed.
It's an interesting story, but I think it's just really indicative of the world gets around. They're just making money off an established market segment, or they're trying to establish a monopoly to make sure other people can't compete. And then you get lower quality, higher priced stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting because I do talk to a lot of people who are close to that space, being someone in tech myself. And I hear that comment a lot, that there's this sort of veil of superiority, nobility, I guess, when it comes to what people in Silicon Valley want to do. But then at the end of the day, they're all after the fame, notoriety, or whatever it is. Yep. And I'm trying to think of the benefit of the doubt here. I feel like some people may actually believe some of the things that they're doing is
sure they do
in service to and then it's not until you have the objective third party person looking in and seeing they're saying they wanted to do this, but they're doing this instead.
Well, it's always look at the outcome, look at the actions. You can say whatever you want, but if you say you're nonviolent and then go around punching people, you're clearly not nonviolent. But because of social media, I think it's just multiple levels of dishonesty. Social media is the projection of the idyllic self or the ideal self. 99% of people, most people who use social media are trying to present the magic moment, the best self. No one's taking a picture of themselves waking up in the morning, hungover, puking in the corner.
Some people do.
Yeah, but those people can just unsubscribe because I don't fucking want them. You know what I mean? But so it's already what you're seeing is not real. And so much of Instagram specifically is just, there's like literal businesses that give you Instagram moments. It's like literally an artificial thing. Like I'm on a vacation on a beach, but it's really of a team of photographers like taking photos for you to make it look perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just my easy vacation. It's 8 a.m. It's great. And there's a difference between fantasy and lying. Mm-hmm. And you also, if people are participating in a fantasy they don't understand as a fantasy, that's a second problem. So like our methodology of communication is basically fake or lying. And then on top of that, you have the people who are using those modalities to then perpetuate another lie in themselves. So the old system used to be mass media was controlled by news organizations for the most part, a handful of other things, but someone would vet that. Someone would go back and what are your financial, like the Elizabeth Holmes Theranos thing is a great example. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any reputable news source would have looked at that, did a story, went and talked to some biologist or some chemist or some medical people, and they would have been like, that's impossible.
Right.
Because anybody who knew anything about biology or chemistry knew that what they were claiming was impossible, or at least the technology that anyone knew about didn't have it. And they claimed to have this magic technology, and then they didn't want to share how it worked. So strike two.
Yeah.
And then they were able to perpetuate and gain notoriety because of social media. So it's a lying system. And so it just like trickles down and now you're so many levels removed from anything. So going back to interviewing, I think in a lot of interviewing, like everyone's expecting that everyone's lying. And so people, and I'm not suggesting you lie on your resume or in your interview. I'm really not. I think if you actually want to get a job that you like, you don't, it's going to be much harder. I don't lie, and I've been very candid in some interviews in the past. I'm surprised I've been hired, but I think sometimes honesty, people are like, yeah, he's clearly not lying, or he's fucking crazy. But I think everyone just thinks they're lying, and either they're internalizing this or maybe they're not, but they're doing that behavior. So if you're actually going along trying to participate in this just world that you think exists, you just immediately get cast aside. And I think that's a very real problem, and people don't want to talk about, because then no one wants to admit that they lie. And when you catch them in a lie, then people get really pissed, because we're all doing it. You're not supposed to say the quiet part out loud. And no, we're not all doing it, actually. But what I find in Silicon Valley, because I've worked in a lot of different industries, Silicon Valley is full of a lot of people who either don't know everybody's lying or participate in it. Maybe they don't necessarily, again, intellectualize that they're lying or think about it as lying or being dishonest. But there's also no morality or no ethics coming in saying, hey, like when we put out the product press release, it has to be a real thing, or it has to be a real thing soon. And is a customer someone who signed up, or is a customer someone who signed up and paid money? Is a customer who signed up and paid money an actual customer if they don't use it? And so you have a lot of these debates and stuff sometimes, but in some companies, it's like we have 50 million customers because we had a landing page and got signups. If nobody's investing money in that company, no one's probably looking. So it's a really, I don't know what we got from interviewing to this, but like to your point of, in order to test something, you have to know the output or outcome. But the thing that makes us human, and I think the thing that makes you a valuable human, is your ability to take unknown outcomes and make things happen, right? It's like problem solving is an easy way to right. And it's really hard to test problem solving because everybody processes different. Most, like the hard problems in businesses that you should be paid the most money to solve for require understanding how that business is, which you're not going to do in an interview. You need a few months in the business to understand how it's operating, what the needs of the individual business. And anyone who has an MBA or has done a case study knows this. Like, you can generally talk about best practices in business, but if it was some sort of a formula thing, everybody would just do the formula and it would be done. It's not. It's partly because it's involved with humans. But AI is the same way. It hallucinates because it's factually wrong. But people hallucinate all the time too, especially when it comes to things like Instagram.
Sometimes humans are intentional.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think at this point, I don't think like a lot of at least the commercial models are not intentionally wrong per se. But
and censor is different. But
I'm not going to mention it this cast.
Okay.
We're going to break the streak.
Okay. Fair. Fine by me.
Good try.
I actually was not referring to that.
And so for everyone who's confused, go listen to our previous.
Okay.
I know. We're trying a new cadence and we're on a new time, and I'm being a really bad everything for this. So people are for transparent.
It's the first. We get a free pass.
Like full transparency, like I think we're chatting like yesterday trying to figure out a time, and then we agreed on a time, and then 10 minutes after we were supposed to have started, I was like, oh, I'll be right there. And now I'm leaving.
But we're here.
But like any other like closing thoughts, or I feel like we were a little bit more all over the place this time, but it's also like before we record, we usually, I think, get the all over the place stuff out, and then we hone in on the stuff that we really want to.
Yeah.
So I'd love feedback from folks if they think this is more entertaining or useful versus a more polished. Because like I don't like produced, but I do like clear. I don't want to just ramble for an hour on a podcast, but sometimes that's what happens, right?
Yeah. Bring it together. I think there's at least a continuation of something we talked about before. So the last time we had mentioned a little bit about culture and what it means, building culture in small teams. And the interview process is one way you start doing that.
Yeah,
people you bring on
we
board.
Explicitly don't interview for culture fit.
I'm not saying that you hire people for culture. I'm just saying that's the bridge, is that the people that you end up hiring determine the culture. So that's where I was going. Thank you. You saw. Thank you. You thread the needle for me.
At 5:00 on a Friday, it's amazing that I saw the needle, let alone thread. Maybe something to talk about next time would be like, how do you... We talked a little bit about like the idea of, can you change or correct a culture?
Yeah.
How do you correct those behaviors? Because like when it comes to culture, it's like a general accepted set of norms. So step one is everyone has to generally agree and accept what the norms are, which sometimes is difficult. But for the most part, people pick up on it pretty quick. It's pretty intuitive. But sometimes those norms are just, no one's really thinking about culture. Typically, it's just kind of stuff happens. And a lot of times the cultural things are not good. Like binge drinking as part of work is a good example. There's many work cultures where it's like, we're going to go have a happy hour after work.
I was like, who's drinking on the job in the places you work?
No comment, but like I've worked in offices that have had like kegerators.
Wow.
And it's weird.
In tech, where you have these nice offices, sure.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I work from home and have a kegerator. What are you talking about? Yeah, I've worked in those, and I've seen people come in at 10 a.m. on a Thursday and grab a beer, and I'm like, okay, that's not what I would do, and also I think is pretty strange, but the culture is we have a kegerator in the kitchen, so that's also strange in my mind too. But I've been in part of some work cultures where it's like, you just go have a drink or like maybe grab some food, you have a little dinner, and then you go home. And then I've been a part of work cultures where it's, no, you have to go like drink all night long. If you're not someone who likes that or does that, then it's not fun. It's also just not healthy, frankly.
Also true.
But how do you correct that kind of stuff? Because if you're the one who's, I don't want to go drink all night with my coworkers, then they're going to be like, yeah, okay, bye. Maybe not, but probably, honestly, if that's your culture, it's probably going to be, you don't fit. But yeah, and I think there's some strategies there. It'd be good to, because I feel like a lot of people just approach this kind of stuff with burn it down. It's like, it all has to be burned down and start over, or I'm just going to go try to find the perfect thing. There is no perfect thing. You might have better fit somewhere else, but you're always going to encounter those situations or pieces of culture that may not work. Sometimes you can change them, sometimes you can't.
This is something I've had experience with as well, and I can't guarantee that we share things that will be useful. Definitely things that work across. Yeah, but again, in the spirit of why we do these, it's more about talking about experiences and sharing thoughts and things that we have tried that may or may not work.
I'm thinking too from like a team perspective. So as a product manager too, like I have a team, but I don't have like direct authority over them usually. It depends on the working environment. Sometimes you don't, you own the P&L or whatever. But you also just have to get people to work together, and you often end up, I feel like, being either a pseudo manager or more of a therapist, frankly.
We're all therapists in some way, shape, or form.
I don't know. Some days my job is like literally listening to people bitch about other people, and I'm just, I don't care. You need to figure it out. Which maybe makes me a really good therapist or a really bad therapist. Yeah. I don't know. But obviously there's ways to approach that with people that, and I think like, how do you, instead of addressing individual behavior, which is where this kind of stuff usually stems to, how do you institute broader cultural changes? And that's, I think, because everybody's been in the office where like you have like free snacks or something, and then someone takes too many snacks and then they don't give you free snacks anymore, right? We're going to punish the whole group, or we're going to remove the thing because one person or a small group of people broke it. And then everyone who didn't break it is, this sucks now because these people suck. And now you have a bunch of conflict types of things of like just what high functioning teams exhibit. Like we were talking earlier about writing down, like you have to write down in a high functional team. You have to be a clear communicator. Everyone on the team has to be an exceptional communicator. It doesn't work. Just straight. I think I'm willing to say that is a requirement.
No promises, right? Say that now, and next week comes.
I'm going to write a note.
Please. Okay, let's end 5 minutes early and take notes on what just happened.
Hey, I actually like that. I can't do that today because I literally have to run out the door for dinner. But yeah, we should. I think that would be good. And then maybe we could even publish that would actually be cool for next time. Let's do the thing. And then do the notes, and then I'll put them in the description, and then people can see. Because I think you hear a lot of this stuff, you're like, oh, that's a really great idea. And then you never do it. So you got to do it. But I think it'd be really interesting also just to see our different perspective on what we thought we said.
That's always
I'm talking to everybody in the company or customers or whatever, and it's like nobody's on the same page, right?
But during the meeting, everyone was not.
Oh yeah, everyone is in violent agreement that everyone is on the same page, and they're not. Happy Friday.
All right, cool. Take care. Have a nice dinner.
You can find us at 3reate.com. It's like the word create, but with a 3 instead of the C. As always, we encourage you to listen, watch, do. We'll see you next time. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate. Thanks for listening.